2024. A new year. A new decade. A new wait, this isn't the right script. If the calendars are to be believed, it is now 2024. Boy, does time fly when you're supposed to be quitting this YouTube thing, but you keep finding interesting things and low-key like the idea that your videos will be watched by people who'll suddenly remember them in the middle of the night 10 years later and get a nostalgia kick from looking them up again. According to the Chinese calendar, 2024 is, or at least soon will be, depending on when you watch this, another year of the dragon. Which can only mean one thing. Everyone and their mother is doing a Spyro 3 video this year. But because I'm a trendsetter rather than a clout chaser, I did that last year, and shall instead spend all of this year talking about other dragon-related things. We are still starting with Spyro, specifically what I consider to be one of the most interesting games in the franchise. Many things can be said about The Legend of Spyro as a whole. My personal opinion is that overall, games are fine. They're just fine. That means they average out to about B tier and that I generally like them. But one of the games is a bit weird. While the first two games were developed by Chrome Studios, who had previously made waves with Ty the Tasmanian Tiger, who himself is not new to weirdly prophetic advertisement campaigns, the third game in the series was developed by a Lyon-based game development company. No, not Eden Games. Thankfully the universe hasn't imploded upon itself to that extent, but rather their most direct competitor by means of being based just a few kilometers away. A company whose name translates into English as Strange Dragonflies. Look, when I say I'm not funny, I mean it. I'm just saying, there's too many coincidences involved in all of this. Why is the continued functioning of the universe this deeply tied up in the existence of the Legend of Spyro of all things? With this change in developer came a sudden change in visual and narrative style, and the ability to play a Spyro game in co-op. I don't care if it's a simple beat-em-up, that alone is worth a few bonus points. But I got a bit curious. Okay, so the timeline of events get a little muddled here, but let me try and explain it as well as I can. First, I got curious in general about which other games they might have made, and I first discovered a game that I've decided is worth a video on its own, and thus I won't spoil it now. Just know this, knowing that Dawn of the Dragon is a game will be absolutely crucial to understanding that one, even if it isn't a Spyro title. Things happened in that playthrough, what I did in the summer of 2023, that made me want to check out the games they'd made prior to Dawn of the Dragon. So, that's what we're doing, and I can think of no better place to start than Kirikou is a game that I don't have the cultural background to talk much about. Also, upon reflection and knowing things, I don't really feel like playing through 7 whole games for this video. Can we maybe cut that number down to half, and if they have a magnum opus series that gets progressively deja vu as it goes on, maybe just that? Arguably what this developer is most known for is a trio of video games based on Asterix and Obelix. If you don't know what Asterix and Obelix is, you must have been living under the rock that calls itself America. Set in Roman times, these comics follow the titular friends as members of a small Gaulish village that has yet to fall to Caesar. This is in part thanks to their druidic friend Getafix, who provides them with a special magic potion. Well, provides one of them, at least. Obelix fell in the cauldron when he was a child, and the consequences Obelix drinking the potion these days could have on the space-time continuum are not known. That, in incredibly broad strokes, is the world in which Asterix, Obelix, the Dark Dogmatics, and an assortment of other friends have all kinds of wacky adventures. And it's one of those we'll be having a look at right now. 2003's Asterix and Obelix XXL is a game I can best describe as follows. Imagine if you took Spyro the Dragon, the game, not the character, we'll get to Spyro the Dragon, the character, in due time, don't worry, made it slightly less great, added in Asterix and Obelix, and, because it's a PS2 game now, also added, say it with me, an unnecessarily convoluted combo mechanic, which is what I'm gonna primarily focus on. because there's not much to go on in terms of story. In XXL1, combos are special attack moves that you buy from the vendor, which you then can't use until you've built up the combo meter by punching enemies in the face. And you don't even need a magic friendship bracelet to do so. You may also think that, given that most combos seem to include the buttons for doing things as punching and then grabbing a newly stunned enemy, that this is a series of events that you're supposed to do. It's not. It's a list of buttons that you have to press in quick succession. There's no need to try and make logic of it. All that'll happen is you get stabbed in the butt and experience the first instance of the overly elaborate death sequence. Wanna know when I finally figured this out? Right about here, in one of the final few levels. And you know, thankfully I did figure it out, because the game really likes throwing combat encounters of multiple hundreds of enemies at you, even going as far as 1,000 for the finale. Very helpfully, using a combo move seems to cancel all enemies that haven't been called into the scene yet, turning a 50-wave encounter into a 2-wave one. Now this does raise several questions about how the combo idea came about, including one where Cadenbeef the Eternal came to one of the developers in a dream while they were just a baby, but I'll spare all four of you for my speculation. And aside from the bit where Obelix tries his best to help you in these combat scenarios and is occasionally playable whenever Asterix is on the platform, the most curious thing about this game is the final few of these special attacks, namely the Twister move. Input the right code, and the gang will become walking tornadoes that shred the everyone to pieces. I've seen that somewhere before. Can't quite put my finger on it. That aside, the game's just fine. It's got a surprisingly good soundtrack, which is sort of to be expected for the genre and time, with a special shout out to the slide theme. This general fight theme. And specifically this alternative fight theme, because damn it if I don't love a good drum beat. Are we talking a soundtrack almost as good as the likes of Ratchet and Clank or Spyro: A Hero's Tale? No, we're not. But it is good. 2 years later, Strange Dragonflies would release the successor to the reasonably well-performing XXL1. XXL2, Mission Las Vegas. Just from the name and cover alone, you can already tell they're having a lot more fun with the medium than they ever did in the first game. And that trend doesn't stop there.
My name is Sam Schiffer-Gold, and I should know a traitor when I see one. I'm a traitor myself. Traitor to Rome, I'll not betray treachery to treasonous reason of Caesar.
Pretty, but I didn't understand a word of what he said, Asterix.
When I say that the cutscenes in this game feel a bit like someone's landed on the fast-forward button, that's partly because the script is so crammed full of jokes. It almost reminds me of myself in the weekly D&D games, except it elicits more of a response because, unlike me, the game's actually funny at times.
I left the ring on under a cauldron. How are you?
Right to sunlight, but will be even righter when get the... Shh! I will come to the point. You all know of Caesar's plans to conquer the Gaulish village. My village. Not news, huh? Well, I believe he's a druid's whisker away from succeeding. By Zeus.
By Belanus. By Odin.
Bye-bye.
What will you get, I think? Thanks to your potions that give superhuman strength to your warriors, your village needn't fear the Romans.
To overcome your village, Caesar would need to give his legions a power even more greater than yours. And I don't know of anybody who could harness such a great power.
Except us, of course.
Precisely.
The plot is fairly simple. Getafix is an No, I refuse. I'm not doing this. Told you this already. I'm not taking this. Told you already. I'm not taking this. This. Look, I'm not doing it, okay? I'm making a line in the sand. I'm standing behind it. This is my boundary. No more putting that into the script. No more making jokes about it being in the script. Or I'm out of here. Getting back into position just so this is loud and clear. You are on really thin ice right now, buddy. Anyway, Getafix has betrayed everyone. Or has he? To find out, the Gauls have to find him in Caesar's latest and greatest vanity project, the titular Las Vegum.
What's that, Las Vegum?
Las Vegas, located in the heart of Rome, this city of luxury and pleasure is dedicated to the pursuit of sporting entertainment for the greater happiness of Romans everywhere. Las Vegas is round-the-clock gladiator combat to the goriest death. It's skimpily clad slaves fed to hungry lions 7 days a week. But Las Vegas is above all a unique welcome and a festival atmosphere every day of the week in a fairy tale setting. Cross the romantic hills of Lutetia as if you were really there. Laugh out loud with the joyful antics of Pirate Island and spend an unforgettable night in the pure opulence of Caesar's palace. Las Vegas, the Roman holiday you'll never forget. Opening soon.
A Jules Caesar production.
Note to you, the author in the Invisibles game that released a year later, fast-paced dialogue works in comedy. Machine gun dialogue does not work when you've got nothing better to say than eat 20 dragonfly eggs all at once. There we go again with the dragonfly, what's up with that? This game basically trades the visual variety of the first game. I know that each area is decorated and whatnot, but it all still looks decidedly Roman, in exchange for doing everything else just a little bit better. Obelix is now playable at all times by the press of a button. Yup, this is the origin of being able to switch between the two playable characters at will. Character movement feels a lot better, as long as it doesn't involve crossing big open areas. Pulling Asterix's cable car no longer requires you to hold the button.
Ain't progress a fine thing?
Combat has been reworked to be simultaneously faster and more sluggish in the hopes that makes you strategize on the fly, and now even includes optional challenges. Defeat a certain enemy in a specific way and get a reward, which includes Magic Potion, which is now the primary requirement for being able to pull off special attacks. But before we get to that bit, we need to talk boss fights. One thing I didn't mention in the XXL1 segment, because my footage capture of XXL1 was kinda spotty, is that it had essentially one idea for a boss fight. Here's a Roman war machine, use the certified arena devices to immobilize it, then unscrew its dangerous bits until it explodes. XXL2 really is the successor to XXL1, because it too has one idea for a boss fight. Find some way of taking this giant down, then execute a simple set of actions. I wonder how they'll simplify and evolve this idea for the worse in the future. Beating each boss also unlocks one of 3 special attacks, those being the returning Twister combo, the Raining Menhirs combo, and the Lightning Move combo. Yes, I've listed them in reverse order for a reason, because you're not going to believe what I'm about to say. The giant electric sphere is better than the Twister. No, not in that game, you idiot. In this game. Sheesh, do I have to do everything myself? One more trademark of these developers worth noting is, weirdly enough, the loading screen. Starting with this game, all of their games going forward have a loading screen that follows this same basic formula. An ultra-wide image, preferably with character faces doing weird emotes on it, but that's not a requirement, and a spinny thing on the right. Some developers try to eliminate the loading screen, others make it part of their style guide, and I'll be honest, I kinda respect them for that. When I stumbled upon that one fan edit of wayneradiotV's Grand Tour 5 that cuts out the opening logo and Arthur and the Invisibles came out, I immediately knew who'd made that game. The loading screen gave that away immediately. That and the overdramatic death cutscenes, which, again, as far as I'm aware, originated with XXL1. Actually, time to come clean a bit. Seeing that video was what kicked all of this into motion more than a year ago. And ever since then, I've been spiraling so many drains, it's like I'm a toilet factory. Thankfully, none of them because any of the games I've played and shown in this video are decidedly bad. That I know of, at least. I didn't finish Kiriko, so I can't talk much about that one. Also of note, based on the credits, both this and the previous game run at least partially on renderware, so that's interesting. What's that? You don't know what renderware is? Renderware is a game engine. If you've ever played a game from the early 2000s, there's a very real chance it was using renderware. Originally created by the masterminds at Criterion, this engine would explode in popularity with the rise of the PS2, with everything from Criterion's own Burnout over SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom to Rockstar's Grand Theft Auto and Milestone's Alfa Romeo Racing Italiano. Why does this foreshadowing this one video idea thing just keep happening? This is now the second time. Also, it'd be remiss of me to not mention Caesar. In the first game, he was just the same pathetic boss as all the others. But man, did he get a glow up in 2. First of all, there's the whole Caesar's Palace thing. That's a very clever name. Though I'm not entirely sure why they're so desperate to advertise the letters CP, nor why they're growing raritanium in the garden. Secondly, you're now actually fighting Caesar and his clones in a fight that gives you a nice little opportunity to combo up. Then it's followed by the same basic boss fight and Caesar's internet is being used against him. Overall, XXL2 is actually somewhat recommendable if you're familiar with games, the characters, mechanics, and jokes that can be made with that. It feels a little like if the Stanley Parable was a beat-em-up, and I gotta admit, I kinda like it. Probably not a good choice for a beginner, but a good time if you know what you're doing. Okay, one more game to check out. Let's finish this with a bang. Developed to coincide with the release of the movie that plays almost without fail every 4 years in at least this corner of Europe, gee, I wonder why that is. Asterix at the Olympic Games is not an XXL game. In name only. It's the same developers, it's the same engine, it plays just about exactly the same, except you now once again need to hold the button to move Asterix's cable car. Huh, I guess progress in game development really did stop in 2006. One quick note worth making is that there was an Xbox 360 port of this game, which featured improved graphics and models, but unfortunately my senior starts developing issues after about 15 minutes of playing. So just know that if anything ever looks uncomfortably familiar in this PS2 version, it looks even more so on 360. Asterix and Obelix are back at their village, about to go on a boar hunt in the nearby forest, when they're interrupted by a live-action human. Comedy hijinks ensue, including Obelix remarking about how out of character his movie counterpart is. Something is most definitely up though, as not only do we find some dark ooze that hurts you on the way back, but when we get there, Getafix is... how can I best put this?
He looks kind of like a JPEG, man.
What do you mean? What's a JPEG?
He looks kind of flat.
I don't understand what you mean because everything looks like an image in real life, Mr. Freeman.
In the blink of an eye, 2 alternate time planes can merge.
Which is exactly what's happened with Getafix. Why thank you, Leon from Scalar. I knew playing that game wasn't a waste of my time. So the goals are off to, not Rome for a change, but Olympia, where we first do a brief tutorialing before being set loose in the Olympic Village. From here, all we can really do is participate in the first 3 events, revealing the gameplay structure to come, which I do want to talk about. The uncanny valley factor of just about every asset aside, the gameplay loop itself is weird, as this is very much a game of 2 halves. One half wants to be a more classic action beat-em-up platformer with load screen masking quote-unquote puzzle segments that link up every 50 feet or so of game world and can't be skipped by doing things like fast traveling because that wasn't a thing in XXL2, and even if it was, it probably would have been cut anyway. The other is a collection of mini-games. It feels disjointed and slapped together in that sort of we kinda didn't want to make this game way. Further adding to this, there's only one super combo available, and it's once again a thing you purchase from the vendor. It's the Twister move again, and you'll have a grand total of about 3 opportunities to use it, considering the magic potion is incredibly rare in this game and the challenges from XXL2 didn't return. It would honestly be a waste of money if not for the final encounter putting you against 1 million Romans! And there fortunately being a magic potion spawn point in this arena.
That's how we go.
That being said, the only purpose this arena serves is to be the place of the final showdown. Yet, you can still go to it after the game ends. Normally, I'm not a big fan of mission-only areas, but that's because most mission-only areas are kinda cool places I'd love to explore without the crunch of there's an objective I have to go to. Places like, I don't know, Carlisle's Island and Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon.
Send in more cyber soldiers.
Unable to comply. This 8-bit piece of fucking hardware is obviously incapable of accommodating your superior needs.
Don't kill me.
Unable to comply.
And thus, not unlike Dr. Nefarious in the 2016 movie, Emperor Nefarious actually started out life as a normal human before he injected himself with dragon blood, had his nuts fall off, and was then maimed by his own useless piece of 8-bit fucking hardware. Such a shame that the medic from TF2 wasn't around. Seems like there'd have been plenty of opportunities to save Rivet's dimension just by having that not be the case, but oh well. This, however, is a field. It's not all that interesting, it has no gameplay, and it's not a mental happy place like the Windows XP background Bliss is. I can live without this place being explorable post-game. Also, soundtrack note, why does the game use a record scratch for some of its fight intros?
Stubborn lot of Romans around here.
Are you actually encouraging the comparison with Ratchet and Clank at this point, game? Because I'm afraid that's not a fight you stand any chance of winning. Overall, Olympic Games, kinda alright. I like that they teased the final Olympic event in the story, but that's about all it's got going for it, really. With Olympic Games well and truly shipped, the calendar rolls from
2007
to 2008, bringing with it a whole new project for Strange Dragonflies. Which, for once, actually involves them making a strange dragonfly. What you might not have been aware of is that Dawn of the Dragon was not the only time they made a game that can be reductively described as teenage protagonists in a world with dragons struggle with identity while having to fight the forces of evil, who in the end turns out to be another dragon. What is that game and how did it turn out, you ask? Well, wouldn't you like to know? And you can, if you watch the video that went live at the exact same time as this one. That's right, that's the sort of fast one I pulled on you. I'll now be accepting Best YouTuber Ever awards. Thank you very much.